Hello, good evening ladies and gentlemen. The meeting this evening will be live streamed to the public. A recording of the public part of the meeting will be available on the council website within 24 hours of the meeting. Would members and officers please remember to switch their microphone on when speaking and turn it off when you are done speaking in the council chamber, and ensure that microphone is positioned near you and speak directly into the microphone. And would attendees also switch off mobile phones or put them on silent, and if you need to take the call, please leave the room. So that's the housekeeping rules done. We will now move on to any apologies for absence.
None, Chair.
Are members happy with the meeting minutes from the 24th of March? Any issues arising from them, or are you happy with those?
No, I don't want any issues.
Okay, that's fine. And then the same for the meeting on the 20th of May, where the chair and vice chair was elected for this meeting. Any problems with that? Right, I think I'll take that as fine. Right. Section 106.
None, Chair.
Okay. And any disclosures of interest? None. And any urgent business?
None, Chair.
Okay. And references from committees and other bodies?
Again, none, Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to the reports. First item, item number 7, private sector housing, additional posts. So if you would like to come forward and present that report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Joanne Nelson. I am the Head of Private Sector Housing. You will see from the report that committee is recommended to approve additional officers, 2 M3 principal officers and 1 full-time equivalent M2 officer, 0.6 full-time equivalent within the private sector housing team. The funding for these additional posts will be met by income from civil penalties. So briefly, our team has been operating with very small numbers for a number of years, and that has led to us not being able to provide the service to residents that we would like to. There is a lot of enforcement that is needed in the town, and the team just hasn't been able to cope with the amount of work that has been coming in. In addition to that, we deal with licensing of mandatory HMOs. Now recently I have received approval from executive to expand the team, licensing officers and other enforcement officers. But what that means is that the team will now consist of 18 officers reporting to 1 team manager, who then reports into me. And that really isn't an effective way of managing the team. So with the agreement of the introduction of these M3 officers, we will be able to create a better structure where lower grade officers will now be able to progress up through the ranks and eventually, hopefully, reach the top. But with the M3 officers and the new structure, that will result in much better management of the team, better support for the lower grade officers, and a much better service to our public. The additional costs relating to these posts is £170,226, but as you will see, the estimated income from civil penalties will be around 1,188,000, and from mandatory licensing 212,769. That comes to a total of £1,400,769, which leaves us with a surplus of around just over £100,000. Money that we receive from civil penalties, any excess can be or has to be used to further private sector housing work. So as we recruit the additional officers and they're trained and they can be going out and undertaking enforcement work, we will see this income coming in. But without the additional officers, we won't realise that resource. So basically, it's just to ask you to approve our recommendations so that we can better run our enforcement team.
Thank you, Joanne. That's a really helpful report, and I think it's a very welcome decision for myself anyway. Do members have any questions in relation to this? I'll start off with Councillor Keynes.
Can I just ask, will these, the whole 1824, be dealing solely with HMOs? I'm sure you could. Will the 18 or 24 that you want proposed be solely involved in looking after the HMOs?
No, not solely for HMOs. So the licensing team, that deal with the day-to-day licensing, that team will consist of 3 full-time officers and a technical officer. That income is separate to the income that we are mentioning in this report. I don't know whether you are aware, but recently I had approval from executive to put the licensing fees up, the mandatory licensing fees up, and so that has enabled us to increase the size of that team. The team that, one of the M3 officers will be overseeing that licensing team, but the other M3 officer and the additional officers are for inspecting single family dwellings. So when we receive a report in from a customer that their landlord's not repairing their property, that team will go out and deal with that. And that team will also be dealing with unlicensed HMOs. So where you have, illegal HMOs that are failing to license, where, they are very high risk, we will have a dedicated team to deal with that, but within the growth of that's included within this report.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Keynes? No. Okay, Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Chair. Will you be looking to recruit these extra posts from inside the town hall or from outside the town hall?
With the M3 officers, that is a high-level principal officer. Although we will advertise within the council, it is highly unlikely that there will be anybody with the expertise that's needed to lead the team, the separate teams. So we will more than likely have to recruit from without, outside the council for those 2 posts. But for the other posts that we have agreement for, they are likely to be able to be recruited from within and then trained up to the required standard.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Councillor Hussain?
Can I ask you, in terms of the extra resources that you're putting in, apart from the income, would that be able to do more enforcement in this particular sector?
Absolutely. We do have at the moment 2 officers with us that are on a secondment that aren't included as part of this report. They've been with us for 8 weeks now, and they have already been out, obviously under the guidance of an experienced officer, and they've uncovered 4 unlicensed HMOs and now in the process of issuing civil penalties. So with the additional staff that we have approval for, there will be a lot more enforcement work that we'll be able to undertake.
And if the landlords are not doing any further appeals to court or anything of the sort, are they?
Sorry, Councillor, in relation to what?
In relation to the HMOs, the appeal that they have done, is that the end of it? Now, I think they lost the appeal that they did not want it, yeah? So is there any further appeals that they can go to the higher up court so that it cannot be implemented?
So the appeal that's we're currently waiting on a decision is for selective and additional licensing, and that is completely separate to this. If that comes in, the fees from those licenses will cover the costs of the staffing for that scheme. But we have got, that's due to come in some point this year, the Renters' Rights Act. Once that's gone through Parliament, government want local authorities to fund that piece of work through civil penalties. We also have the supported living licensing that is currently going through the motions, and again that is due to come in by the end of this year, and that area of work will be funded by the licensing fees. But of course, the landlords could bring a judicial review for our increased fees, etc. But we haven't had anything through so far.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Can I just remind members to refer questions relating to the report only? Any other further questions or comments from members? No? So the committee's recommended to approve the 2 posts, so I'm going to go ahead and approve that recommendation. Do any second? I don't know, do we need to second this? Yeah? Or any objections to that? No? That's fine. That's gone through, Joanne. Thank you so much for your time. Right, I'm now going to move on to item agenda number 8, which relates to the upgrade and creation of public rights of way. So I think, Chris, I believe that's yourselves presenting, right?
Madam Chair, can I just say something?
Yes.
I should really. I'm not sure whether I should declare an interest here. Although this is not in my ward, Crawley Green Road is.
Maybe note that for the report, but you don't have to declare an interest, but we can note that in the report. Is that okay? Yeah, thank you. Right, sorry, Chris, please go ahead.
Good evening, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. The purpose of this report is to delegate the legislative process required in order to create a new right-of-way and upgrade an existing right-of-way to officers of Hertfordshire County Council and suitably amend Luton Council's rights-of-way definitive map and statement. My recommendation is for the committee to authorise the delegation of Luton Council's powers to Hertfordshire County Council pursuant to the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 and all other enabling powers in order to create a restricted byway between Crawley Green Road and the Luton-Hertfordshire boundary footpath 4539, that is footpath 45 in Luton and 39 in Hertfordshire, and upgrade the Luton-Herts boundary footpath 4539 to restricted byway status, and then authorise Luton Council officers to suitably amend the Council's definitive map and statement. The route runs predominantly along the boundary of the 2 authorities. It was decided for ease of administration that a single authority would undertake the works required, and Hertfordshire County Council, who have a long-established rights-of-way team, were happy to do so at no cost to Luton Council. Both authorities received applications and subsequent directions from the Planning Inspectorate to determine if the upgrade should be made, and the resulting amendment to the definitive maps for each authority. Appendix 2, which is prepared by Hertfordshire County Council, provides the evidence base for the routes, and Luton officers are in agreement with its findings. As a result, the proposal is to approve the delegation of powers to officers of Hertfordshire County Council to undertake the process, pursuant to the Countryside and Wildlife Act 1981, in order to create the new restricted byway from footpath 3945 at the council boundary to Crawley Green Road, and upgrade the existing footpath, number 3945, to restricted byway status and amend the definitive map accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from members? Councillor Keynes.
Who is responsible for this pathway now?
is in existence, so the responsibility lies with the two authorities for maintenance and so on. It exists by virtue of use for 20 years or more, so whether we like it or not, this route exists. We are now hoping to formally record it and formally record it as a restricted byway.
So who put the fence up along there?
I'd have to ask which fence.
The gate. If I'm thinking of where it is.
Is that the Hailing Drive?
Yeah,
I think that was a Luton Council.
that's Luton. Yeah. The only thing I can say, it's a bit of a confusing area really, isn't it? Because where does Hertfordshire begin and Luton end?
That is part of the reason that we are asking Hertfordshire County Council officers to take this forwards, because the path does straddle the boundary between the two authorities. So it will sit on Luton's definitive footpath map and will be indicative on the Hertfordshire definitive footpath map.
So the drains that are in there, are they Luton's or Hertfordshire's?
I'm not aware of any drains, but if they sit on that route, the responsibility for maintenance will ultimately lie with Luton if it's sitting on the Luton side of the boundary.
Councillor Mead.
Is it proposed to put a hard surface on this path? Looking at some of these pictures, you know, in places it's no more than a muddy track. And the reason I'm asking that is that I've got a footpath which they paved in my ward, and it's turned into a motorbike, dirt bike run track with people on loud motorbikes roaring up and down it. And I was wondering, if you're going to start paving this path, you need to do something to discourage that. I wouldn't go as far as piano wire, but it is tempting.
The report is for the delegation of the powers to formally record, but the paved area, we don't propose to pave any more than is already paved. I think about 2/3 of it is already paved and 1/3 remains unmade. The reality is the stretch that runs near to Wandon Park there's a paved route immediately adjacent to it that the majority of people use anyway.
Following on from that, that's why I really asked you whose responsibility was it, because Luton actually spent an awful lot of money on trying to stop cyclists and motorbikers going up there. And I'm just wondering there, if it's Hertfordshire's responsibility, why did we pay for it?
No, the stretches you refer to, I think, are Luton's responsibility, hence the reason for the works.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Hussain.
Taken up, and by the way, we do ask relevant questions. I take an exception that I think the housing does have an impact on the HMO as well as the selective. Those two are intertwined, and therefore, if one is challenged, then the other one cannot go. No, because you made a remark, and I'm answering you to that.
That's fine. If you have a question to this report,
Yeah.
I'll take it, but
On
I am the
this one,
chair
going
and I
to
can't
do that.
decide which
When
question
I'm
can
ready,
go further.
I'll ask the question, Chair, with due respect. The question I'm asking you, in terms of my colleagues asked the question, not just the repairs, but also where they're narrow so that motorbikes cannot come through, as they have done in between us and the central beds. Is that sort of thing going to operate in there so that the people living in Wigmore area are not affected by the motorbikes coming through that path?
I'm not aware of motorcycles being a nuisance in that area at present. The path isn't going to change. This is a process to just formally record its existence. It's going to stay as it is currently. There's no proposals to improve it as a result of this report. It is merely to ensure it is properly mapped and recorded on the definitive footpath map.
The reason I'm asking you is that once we transfer the responsibility to Hertfordshire, we do not have too much role in as such. So as a authority passing to because obviously they have the largest part, we have a very small part of it, but we still need to have some control if this problem starts as it has done in Dallow Downs coming over the M1 bridge into the Foxdale. That problem did start much after when it was hard surface was put into it over the motorway bridge. So that's from the experience. Can we just please make sure that we do not get the same problem repeated on what happened in the others?
Yeah, I think I should just confirm we are only delegating the administrative process to formally record the path. We're not delegating the path or any parts of Luton over to Hertfordshire.
Thank you. Yes, before we go on, for the avoidance of any doubt, I am the chair, so I can set the tone and allow any questions I like. So moving on from that, I do appreciate your remarks and your clarification, but as the chair, I do have the authority to allow certain questions. So, Councillor Malik, would you like to ask your question?
Can we have a facility on that part for disabled people and elderly people, like they are on a wheelchair, sort of these kind of things on that part, so they can go smoothly, you know, some hilly area and then these kind of things, you know?
Again, this is there's no intention to change the path's nature at present. Like I say, about 2/3 of it is already paved, and there is access available for those that are less able. Where the path remains a muddy track, there is a tarmac path immediately adjacent to it. So.
Does that answer your question? Do you have any follow-up questions? Okay, that's fine. Councillor Ajisola has a follow-up question.
Oh, just in response to about the bike, you said you are not aware at the moment of any bike maintenance. So what will happen in the future if you find out this bike issue coming up there? Will it be also dedicated to, or will the Hertfordshire side be responsible for that, or is it going to be us?
It will likely sit with Luton Council, the responsibility for dealing with any complaints that result from that. It'll depend on exactly which stretch of the path that the problem occurs on, but it would be a joint authority matter.
Thank you, Chris. Any further comments or questions from members? No? I have a question. So once this does all get sorted out, you know, and I know that it straddles between two different authorities, will there be a follow-up report to let us know of what the actual outcome was, of how it's gone, and also how that's sort of being managed between the two authorities?
Yeah, I'll happily report back on the situation once the process has been gone through. It's likely to take probably, I would think, 9 to 12 months, but yeah, I'm happy to report back.
Is this something that the members would like to have reported back on?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you, Chris. So the recommendation for this report is to, let me find the right page, to authorise the delegation of Luton Borough Council's powers to Hertfordshire County Council, and to also create a restricted byway between Crawley Green Road and the Luton Hertfordshire Council boundary footpath, to upgrade the Luton Hertfordshire Council boundary footpath number 4539, and to authorise officers of Luton Borough Council to amend the definitive map and statement as appropriate. Any objections to this recommendation? No? That's fine. Thank you, Chris. That's gone through for you. That's fine. Thank you so much, Chris. You get your evening back now. Right, moving on to the draft work programme on pages 44 and 49. Do members have any questions or any suggestions for changes to that?
The only comments I've got is on the 2nd of July, there's an awful lot of money on there, isn't there?
Yeah, I do notice that. Is there a way, are all of these time sensitive, or is there a way that we can move some of these around?
I can find out if any of the items aren't time sensitive and look at moving those to the September meeting.
I think that would be helpful because that is quite a lot on the programme. But again, hopefully if they aren't any time sensitive items on there, we can move those. That's fine. Any other
I
questions?
don't think even Madam Chairman you could get through it as quick as...
Right. Any other questions or comments or suggestions? No? I think... Yeah? Yes, Councillor Singh.
Really, if there is a short agenda like that, where we've only got sort of 30 minutes to come in, can we not amalgamate so that we don't have too many meetings? Some of us have quite a few other meetings, and I've been here every day of the week so far, and probably tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I noticed in September there's 2 meetings. I think that's a very helpful suggestion. Can we amalgamate it and find a date somewhere in the middle? Yeah?
Might be one or the other.
One or the other. I think if it's later in the month, that'll be better because then you might find some more items. But with that in mind, that you'll move some from the July meeting into that as well. Yeah. Okay. Any others? No? Okay. I think that concludes that item. Any Local Government Act?
Yes, if you just read the private, just say we're going ahead, does everyone agree to go into private?
Okay. Just read that.
Just say, does everyone
Okay. Does everyone agree to go into a private meeting now? We have a private item to